Welcome back with another banger. It's the React Files. Hope you're having a good night. If you haven't already, please take a second
just to smash that like, subscribe, ring that notification bell,
just to make sure the algorithm knows what's up. So let's get straight to
abilities of our nationally kept secrets would shatter most people's imagination of what is possible.
This is probably one of the more well-known black-budget time travel projects, with the exception of the Montauk Project. Many whistleblowers have said that the program was not actually shut down, but just classified into deep black.
The people that know everything about Looking Glass, that have gotten all the reports and all the information, the elites of the world, probably figured out that that was the end of the game, and nothing could be manipulated beyond that point.
According to the alleged insiders, the Looking Glass technology was apparently used to look backward and forward in time, using the consciousness of an operator as a type of steering mechanism. The operator would sit in a chair that was apparently recovered from a downed extraterrestrial craft capable of interfacing with consciousness directly. When the device was turned on, strong toroidal fields of energy cycled about a pouch of water at the center, which acted as a sort of resonator for in-streaming energies from the point of focus maintained by the operator. The data was collected and projected onto video monitors at incredible speeds, which later needed to be deinterlaced to reveal discernible images. What's interesting is that the biases of the operator would have a direct effect on the images collected. For example, if one were to look back to the time of Jesus' crucifixion, if the person doing so was an atheist, they may not see anything at all. But if the person was a Christian, they may see the infamous crucifixion event. This is suggestive of a time-space mechanic in the universe, wherein the human mind is able to navigate through time itself. The work of Dewey B. Larson and his reciprocal systems theory provides the basis for this interpretation. Briefly, as described by Larson, the universe is broken up into two physical regions, as defined by motion. Below the speed of light, motion operates in 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. Above the speed of light, motion operates in 1 dimension of space and 3 dimensions of time. As bizarre as that sounds, the mind is uniquely equipped to navigate in time, which is able to access memories of the past, gain awareness of events in the present, conceive of future possibilities, and even imagine alternative events that did not actually happen. In other words, the human mind can select a point of focus, just like in remote viewing, and receive the information from the store of memories made during the experience.
Do you know the difference between Looking Glass and the yellow cube?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of what happened to the yellow cube and how it was used and so on?
I believe that the yellow cube still exists. I can't say for certain if it's on this planet, but I would say that it's definitely protected from use at this point.
Okay, well, that coincides with the testimony we got.
The yellow cube or the yellow book would give you your possible future.
Yes.
So it took basically the choices that you would inherently make along a timeline and tell you what that timeline would be, given that you made all the choices that your brain would make.
Well, this is exactly what I was just going to ask you. What we were told is that leaders of governments and so on, people in high places, politically, would use this to try to see their most optimum future and then follow those. So they were using it to enhance their wealth, et cetera,
Yep.
in a very egotistical way. And that was part of the problem with it.
The Looking Glass device seems to be capable of the same type of process. To access a data stream from any conceivable location in space or time, steered via the consciousness of an operator. According to the testimony of Burish, the technology was provided to the human race during the Sumerian times, when an advanced contingent of future humans went back in time and provided that civilization assistance after a cataclysm known as the Deluge. The Sumerian cylinder seals were encoded with plans to build the looking glass device. Earlier versions of the project saw the development of an actual portal that an individual could move through to jump in time. According to Burish, accounts provided by captured beings known in the program as P-45s, future humans 45,000 years into the future, the Earth was destroyed by massive cataclysms around the year 2012. This is apparently because looking glass devices were actively being used during a major celestial alignment, which overloaded the organic energy grid of the planet. Burish further claims that the device has been dismantled as a result of discovering two probable timelines, one of which is the cataclysm described by the captured being. An attempt was made to look into the future, but no concrete data was able to be received past the infamous date of December 21st, 2012, suggesting that this date is a nexus point in time, whereby either Timeline 1 or Timeline 2 would gain momentum. In the last report, Burish suggested that Timeline 1, the positive timeline, had an over 80% likelihood of coming to fruition. Given that we are nearly a decade beyond the 2012 date, and no major cataclysms have occurred, we are most likely well entrenched within the positive timeline. This is undoubtedly one of the more intriguing topics in Awakening Times, which seems to be well hidden in popular works of fiction. Corey Goode, a secret space program insider, claims to have reviewed documentation relating to this project.
It would be very hard to accept that all of this information that is currently held secret and classified.
It's good to know that we was on the right side of history, showing there's still good in humanity. It's like all these projects have something in common, one way or another.
And now ABC is coming out, Disney ABC is coming out with a new remake of V, and in it the extraterrestrials that look like humans who are bringing a, quote, new order to the world. And the pamphlet in the movie is called Dawn of a New Day. I was said, wow, I cannot believe how overwhelmingly obvious this secret symbol is now becoming. And that's why I want to do this video on it.
But were you told more about the movie, more about, you know, where they're going with it? In other words, I'm assuming you haven't seen it.
No, I haven't seen it yet. But I watched the other ones so many times. And the other ones, if you remember in the original, the visitors, they were wonderful people. They were very gracious and charming. And then remember the lady who was in charge of the visitors, she was the highest ranking. She went into a room and pulled off her face. It was a reptile alien.
Yes.
I personally, I brought David Icke to America. He was in America because I brought him here personally.
Yes.
And so I'm saying that I am totally convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt for myself, that there are such things as reptile aliens. Though I have never seen one, thank God, but I totally believe they are here. Not because of David Icke, not because of Crito Mutwa, who I love listening to, wonderful, fascinating man. David Icke has done great stuff. But I believe there are reptile aliens here because of my own personal research. I have been in the company of at least 8 people over the past many years, 8 different people. Each one is extraordinarily well-grounded people. Airline pilot, one, with a major airlines, a very wealthy man in Las Vegas who buys and sells commercial hotels, buildings, etc. Extremely wealthy man, Christian, incidentally, very Christian man, but very, very wealthy and very highly intelligent man. Sat down and told me about his personal one-on-one with a reptile alien in which many others in his church were privy to see. That's a whole story in itself. That happened in Colorado. And then to have scientists and a young lady who was one of my favorite people in the world, a young lady called Nancy, who just blew me away. And on my radio show, I used to have a show. I've had 7 different radio shows in my life. I'd like to get back on radio and do my own show again. But I had a show on KPFK here in Los Angeles, FM station. And one night I had Nancy on. And Nancy just blew the audience away. She is so feminine, so incredibly charming and feminine girl, talking about stuff that will blow your mind. Her father was in the Air Force, her family was Air Force, but her father was in charge of project retrievables for the Air Force. The man who was in charge of going out wherever in the world, any extraterrestrial activity, he was in charge in the Air Force to go there first. And he was the boss. And she said, and the modus operandi was always the same. And I'll have to make you a copy of her. I got 2 2-hour interviews that will just knock you out. And you could tell this is a very charming girl, but telling you stuff that you're going to have to sit down to deal with. And she said her father, wherever they would go, she always lived on military bases. And she said, and always the method was the same. There was one phone in the house for the family, and then there was another phone which no one ever touched. You never used it. And when that phone would ring, no matter when, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, it doesn't matter. If that phone rang, her father had 10 minutes to be fully dressed with his briefcase and ready to go. And in 10 minutes, a car would pull up and nothing was said. No voices, no nothing was said. A knock on the door, he would walk out, he would have military escort him to the car, get in the car and drive off, and that's it. Nobody knows where he's gone, and nobody needs to know.
It was giving me Bruce Wayne vibes. We're just having one phone, the bat phone. But then someone pulls up, 10 minutes later, no questions asked. That's some real secret stuff right there. Sounds like a movie.
This is Bill Ryan from Project Camelot and Project Avalon. And the date is the 16th of February, 2010. And this is a bit of an unusual video presentation here because I'm taking the step of making a video as an interpretation and as a commentary on an audio interview which we did with an important witness who came and reported his story to Project Camelot a little while ago, about a couple of weeks ago. And as with many of our witnesses, this person wanted to remain anonymous, but he has agreed that we transcribe the audio, and so we've got this as a transcript. And this is going to be released at the same time as the video because it's important to be able to read the transcript at the same time as you're considering what I'm saying about it here. And as we come into this story, you're going to understand exactly why it's important to get all the information, to hold it all into a very fine balance. Now, this is a British person, and he worked in the British military for a number of years. And after he retired from the military, he worked in the City of London in a fairly senior position, in a respected position in the City of London. And for those people watching this video who don't know about the City of London, the City of London is it's like an enclave. It's like a financial enclave in the heart of London itself. Some people consider it almost a little bit like the Vatican. It's very old, it's very ancient. It's the heart of the financial system, not only of Britain, but possibly the world. Many researchers consider that it's very likely that the City of London calls the shots on the financial systems in America. They've got control over the Federal Reserve, the Bank for International Settlements, a whole bunch of things that happen. This is like the nerve center of the financial world. And it's very Masonic, it's very ancient, it's very traditional. And our source attended a number of meetings with senior Masons. And while many of these were interesting, they were routine by City of London standards. They were discussing financial affairs and so on and so forth. And then in the June 2005, he attended another meeting that he thought was going to be a routine meeting, but actually this was something rather unusual, and he realized it was unusual as soon as he arrived. In fact, in his interview with us, the one which we have the transcript of, you will see that he says that he felt it was an accident that he was there. He shouldn't really have been there. He didn't know what was happening. And as such, he didn't really participate in the meeting. He was there as a little bit as a fly on the wall. He was just listening to what was happening. And at first he didn't even understand what was being discussed. Now, the people there were Masons. There were senior Masons. They were about 25 or 30 people there, including senior politicians who most people in the UK would recognize by name. I do not know who they were. He didn't name them, and I didn't ask them, but he said these are well-known names. The chief of police was there, representatives from the church, representatives from the military, 25 or 30 people. And as he listened to this story being discussed, it was an informal meeting. It wasn't like at a big table with kind of notepads and water glasses and minutes and an agenda and a chairman. There were just people in a room who were talking about all of this stuff. And what they were talking about was a plan that had clearly been made a long time ago. And what they were discussing was they were discussing the implementation of this plan. They were discussing how things were going, whether they were on track or not. And what, for example, to give a flavor of this, they were discussing between them some of the problems that they had in the implementation of their plan. And as this little presentation continues here, you will realize what the plan was. And I'm going to be revealing this in very much the same way as it was revealed to our witness and as he revealed it to me, bit by bit, step by step. The first thing that he heard was they were talking about the fact that Israel didn't look as if it was getting prepared to attack Iran anytime soon. This was a problem. Even back in June 2005, they were apparently concerned that what it was that was planned on some kind of a timeline wasn't rolling out according to schedule, and this was an issue for them. So that attracted his attention very quickly, because he'd never been in a meeting when this kind of thing was discussed. Then they were talking about China and how powerful China was getting, both militarily and financially, very quickly, and that the Japanese weren't doing what they were supposed to do, which was to interfere in some way with the Chinese financial system. They weren't doing that, and this was another problem because China was getting too strong too quickly. Other things that were discussed were, for example, the coming financial crash, the centralization of resources, everything that we saw starting to happen in October 2008. They were planning that and referring to it in their meeting in June 2005. So there was clearly a rollout of some plan here, and he was quite shocked the more that he heard. And when he really realized what was happening, he was extremely shocked. And one of the reasons why I'm giving this video presentation now is to soften the blow and interpret this a little tiny bit, because it is shocking information. And what I also want to do is I want to try and differentiate out between what it was that he reported, because he'd heard it with his own ears, and what it is that is his speculation and my speculation about how all this fits together. It's very important information. We need to know this stuff. Even though it doesn't look like it's going to be on track, I don't think this will happen. I think that there are a bunch of crazy people there who are extremely determined to do something, and they were in a hurry. and this is important to understand, they were in a rush.
But yeah, these guys was privy to some high value information. That Mission Impossible, James Bond. Like, yo.
Gunfire erupted on the Korean border after Kim Jong-un's troops crossed into the south. The Joint Chiefs of Staff said their military warning broadcasts and warning shots caused the 20 North Korean soldiers to retreat. This comes after Kim Jong-un sent hundreds of balloons filled with human waste and trash down into the south, who retaliated by restarting loudspeaker propaganda campaigns. The infuriated North warned that Seoul was creating a new crisis.
Well, that's not good. Hope they can find a way to work it out quickly.
This is the top of the eye, I believe, and it obviously comes running over this way and over this way. We saw all of the different layering of the lens or the cornea or whatever it was, and you can see there's an extreme difference between the types of tissue as you go deeper and deeper and deeper. Now, let's look at a little lower here, down where they are. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this, because you can, and I do too. I could jump over things. Wow, look at that, and I go along. Wow. If you take your time, you see things that are quite interesting. You see the texture and the curvature of the tissue here, and then you see this. There's no reason for that to be exactly blocky like that, except that it is part of the blockiness, first of all, of anatomy, but secondly, it is, I believe, one of the muscles that twisted that eye up and down or this way or that way. Now, secondly or thirdly or sixthly or whatever it is, look at this right here. You see that? You see that? You look at this and you think, wow, they're really thin little layers, because there's a bazillion of them. But look at this. They get to be almost paper thin. There's one right after the other. And I find this in my, hold on, I'm going to get some. Hold on. Okay, I got the microscope fired up. I got a ton of dragon samples right here, and I will show you, and you will not. Well, here's one right here. There's a dragon scale. That's a scale from a dragon. That locked it in right there. And that right up in here is the blood supply. And we're going to be looking at that in the microscope. You'll see it. And I have a ton of different ones. And I'm going to show you how many layers, when you see how many layers of tissue is in these, I believe that's another dragonish thing. Here's another one that we're going to be looking at in the microscope. You see how many layers there? You can't even believe. And that is biological. That's not just a bunch of sediment laying there. That's a biological sample. And this is a feather. I'll show you. I have people all over the world now contributing to Mud Fossil University. You see that? That's the feather. It's just like a turkey feather. And here it is right here. I think that's exactly where he broke it off of, or right in that area somewhere. And I don't know, I can't really match it up, but that's what it is. That's the same damn thing. And that's a pretty thick feather. You know what I mean? They don't make them that way now. Now, I also have, as you saw, the dragon scales. I don't know, that's a different type of dragon. It doesn't have a feather. And we're going to be looking at them in the microscope. You see the actual blood where it infused in. Everything had to be serviced with blood. This is, again, so dense with layering. And then when you see the red and the black and the so forth, that means there's blood there. That was blood. And I have all kinds of things. And here's a different, that's just a bone. And this is a different type of scale. I don't know what that was on. But that's the tab that held that in. See that hook right there? So it hooked into something, and then it has that flute laid on another channel, and another one hooked in and hooked in. The same thing that this did, but only upside down. I don't know. There are a lot of different dragonish looking things on the ground. And when I show you the microscope, you're going to see all of that layering. That's what gave the dragons their toughness. I don't know if you can see that. Well, you will in the microscope, but you can see. And that's what they see all around the earth. And they say, ooh, that's all sedimentation. No, it is not. Absolutely not. And I got so many things to go over. Yikes. That's all I can say. Okay, these are the things that move through your heart in little chunks, and they attach to other molecules using what's called a ligand. It's just a little snipper. Grabs a hold of it, brings it where it goes, and it says, you give me 2, I'll give you 2. Boop, done, case closed. And here's what they look like. Hold on one second. What is it going to look for? All right, that's an opal eye, and it just happens to be that it was in the conditions that the aqueous transition metals attached, and you know, there has to be an exact chemistry to make these things happen. But at least you could see the strap in the eyeball. Now, this is a heart, and this was the upper part of the heart, and it was laying down like this. So this was low. That's why the transition metals, which are heavier, settled here more than up above, which is the red platelets just sort of lifted them, not lifted up, but they're floated to the surface because these are heavier. Now, you see all these different colors. This was in a condition, I believe this was from the Yoa region in Australia. Fabulous opals. Now, what that means is there was some chemistry here which created the right pH, the right transition metals were right in this area, and they just invaded exactly the tissues that wanted them. That's why they're exact different colors in the exact different areas where tissue layers are. You see how this is all brown, so forth? This makes this color layer here. This is all this blue, and all the heartstrings running in are the same color. They have the same chemistry. They do the same job. They have different structural integrity. They have different responses. They have different molecules inside of them. And what it's doing here is going, taking this blood, pushing it through the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, and all that stuff, and moving it through your body. Bad's one inside, good goes out the other side.
Shout outs to Mud Fossil University. First time seeing his work. Highly impressed, mind blown, bended. Feels like my brain's been through a pinball machine. Highly stimulating. Like, whoa. Wait a minute. Definitely got me looking at the world a little different. That's crazy. I've never seen anything like that. Heard of anything like this. The deer jumped through the window of a city bus. Bro, that passenger in the front was freaking out. He had every reason to be. I hope the deer survived. Hopefully everybody was okay.
They're completely useless at this point. The name, I would say, it's the awakening process. It's an evolution of consciousness that cannot, will not, and no matter what decisions or possibilities are injected into the equation, eventually it all resolves down to us all learning the truth and becoming aware of this massive dam of lies that has been built that keep us from knowing massive volume of information that we should otherwise possess.
Okay, well that's very, very monumental to be told that from a person in your perspective, who's had your background and your exposure. Is it your understanding that the notion that looking glass has been, you know, that there are various looking glasses around the globe supposedly, that according to Dan Burish were shut down. Is it your understanding they're actually not shut down?
I believe that they're shut down because they are all saying the same thing, and they're completely useless at this point. Right. It's like the Wicked Witch, you know, looking into the, you know, magic mirror and always getting the same answer. Well, if you were always getting the exact opposite of the answer that you wanted, you'd stop talking to the mirror. And that's essentially what happened with Looking Glass. is no longer, not only did they not want people to use it anymore because they knew it was just going to burp out the same thing, but at the same time they didn't want anybody else to know what it was saying, I'm sure. Because that information was of a monumental concern when I was in the military about how to prevent this inevitability. Now, at first I thought it was end of the world. Now I see end of the world as end of their world.
Well said. Okay, but are you aware, do you know the difference between Looking Glass and the yellow cube?
Yes.
Okay, and are you aware of what happened to the yellow cube and how it was used and so on?
I believe that the yellow cube still exists. I can't say for certain if it's on this planet, but I would say that it's definitely protected from use at this point.
Okay, well that coincides with the testimony we got. Can you also verify that leaders of...
But let me say one thing about the yellow book and its differences with Looking Glass. The yellow cube or the yellow book would give you your possible future.
Yes.
So it took basically the choices that you would inherently make along a timeline and tell you what that timeline would be, given that you made all the choices that your brain would make.
Well, this is exactly what I was just going to ask you. What we were told is that leaders of governments and so on, people in high places, politically, would use this to try to see their most optimum future and then follow those. So they were using it to enhance their wealth, et cetera,
Yep.
in a very egotistical way. And that was part of the problem with it. And that supposedly one of the specific things we were told had to do with Hillary. Are you aware of any of that?
You mean the 2012 protection for her?
Well, will you tell me what you know?
I don't have any first-hand knowledge of this. This is all back alley information. But one of the last predictions that was put out by the Yellow Cube was that, for all intents and purposes, and this is just my level of understanding, is that Hillary Clinton would be president in 2012. And when the Yellow Cube is involved, it leads me to question what I know about Looking Glass and string theory along with that. The first question that anybody that knew anything about the process would know is who was using the cube
Right.
when it made that prediction. If I knew that, then I could tell you why it would predict what it predicted.
Wasn't there also an issue with, I'm not sure, but in using the Yellow Cube, Yellow Book, however you want to term it, that they actually had to use it through an intuitive who had a high vibration, had to be in the vicinity to, in a sense, be the go-between between the person who wanted to use the cube
Right.
and the cube itself, because normally they didn't have the vibration necessary.
Correct. And that is a process that would prevent anomalies from popping out in predictions.
But it wouldn't completely...
No, and I'll tell you why. If it was used properly by somebody that knew how to use it and could eliminate their thought process from the machine's effective use, it would be very easy to get an exact, what future holds. However, anybody that has that ability would inherently know that that information could not be given and would be protected. And that inherent notion would inject something into the yellow cube or the yellow book that would give an inaccurate statement. Just by the person that's using its intuition saying, if I tell the truth, it'll be bad. So the higher levels pick up on that and throw out a different scenario that isn't the truth.
It's, in a sense, the feedback loop gets dirtied somewhere along the line by exposure.
And that's why those pieces of technology should have never been used by humanity in its current level of understanding. Because for all intents and purposes, the technology doesn't work right when we use it.
Right, I totally get that. Okay, so to get back to Looking Glass and features, they do converge. And the notion of, is there anything else that you can tell us, that you would want to tell us about that and the rest of the laundry list of sort of information that you had directly to for yourself or through someone that you had vetted?
The biggest cherry on top of all this conversation would be a synopsis to say that if I could convince everybody out there that for all intents and purposes, what we believe to be true eventually becomes true. If somebody convinces us that a major disaster is going to happen in the very near future, a major disaster happens in the very near future. If we don't buy into that fear and accept that there is really nothing that we know is going to happen, and accept of whatever happens, that makes the convergence of the timelines happen as naturally as possible. Any attempts to try to go away from this one inevitable conclusion, I again see as a new beginning, an end of this reality, the beginning of something that we can't even possibly understand based on the level of our beliefs currently. But when all that information comes flooding out, there's going to be no denial.
Shout outs to Bill Wood. First time hearing about the guy. Just heard about this yellow cube / yellow book. Sounds like it's real conscious based. Can't fall into the hands of the wrong person kind of thing. Very interesting. Giving me real sci-fi vibes, you know? Like the Oracle would find out the future and wouldn't tell anybody kind of thing. Interesting.
Okay, my friends, I just got these in from Tyson. He got them in from a lady in Christchurch, New Zealand, Christine, and these appear to be some old map showing the head of a creature is Africa. And there's more than that one. Hold on. We got this one, and then we got this one. Now, and they both appear to be different maps, and they both appear to show the exact same thing. And I looked up the cranial formation, and it's not too far off from that. I mean, it really isn't. So, if anybody has any information, I'd sure like to hear about it, because I have nothing more on this. It really does fit, I'm telling you. I mean, that's like the cartilage off his nose. And the skull areas seem to be pretty close to looking like this. So if anybody can help, we'd love to have this. And the size of the creatures that we are talking about, this is not outside of the realm of possibilities. I know it sounds insane, but it is what it is. All right, this is what tendon balls look like, and this is what moons look like. That is where the tendon ball was attached. They are biological. You see that? That's Iapetus. It's got the same type of implant. Some of them have two, some of them have one. Some of them have ridges, some of them don't have ridges. But they are all moons. I mean, they are all tendon balls. There's an equilateral ridge in Iapetus. There's tetches. Same thing. They're all the same. This is Iapetus again. No. This is Mimas. You see, they're all the same. They cut up bodies of the gods. That's all I can tell you. And the head could be Africa. I have no idea. I'd love to see a little more on that map. All right, this is Comet 67P on top of Raleigh, North Carolina. You see the size of it? That is also a tendon ball. Anybody that's been following me knows it's a tendon ball. That is the tendon ball right there, and its stalk came out, and this one got ripped out and still has the actual tendons and a piece of muscle. That is muscle right there. And these little pinches are the muscle bundles. These little fibers are the tendon fibers. And that's exactly what this is, and it is enormous. Space is filled with the bodies of creatures. I cannot account for that other than this was written about in the past. And everybody thought it was hysterical, but it may just be historical. Now the crazy thing is, these tendon balls are these little tiny balls that are inside the joints of your body that lock and secure the muscles and tendons into something secure so you can pull your muscles against them. So some of these are tiny little tendon balls. The one that I showed you, like 67P, Comet 67P, is something like this. Other ones lay out flat, and then they have all kinds of balls inside the muscle and so forth that hold things. Other ones form balls, and then out of that ball comes the stalk. 67P is this type. The other ones I think are from areas of this, but they are all biological, and all of the astronauts say when they go out in space and they come back from the capsule, their spacesuits smell like steak.
And that's a wrap. Hope you enjoyed tonight's rabbit hole. If you haven't already, please take a second
Just to smash that like, subscribe, ring that notification bell.
just to make sure the algorithm knows what's up. So what we gonna do, y'all? That's right. Run these numbers up. Thanks again. Until next time.